turn over to page 148 and sing God Leads Us Along. Sing the first two stanzas together. Seated.
All right, well, it is exciting to share this report and update with all of you. And the way I want to present it is not so much as a report, but it is a thank you. An expression of our thanks to all of you, an opportunity for us to give back through the form of rejoicing and sharing some of these details and memories with you. This was not just a youth group mission trip. This was a Cornerstone trip for many reasons. We know that you were praying as we went out to Alberta. But even more so, you invested very heavily in other ways as well. Even just looking back on our records for Rent-A-Teens and other donations, our church family gave close to $10,000 toward the raising of funds for this trip, in addition to all of the other less tangible forms of support and help. And so we are very grateful for that. I want to give you just a brief overview of the trip, not so much to tell the whole story of how everything went, because we don't have time for all of that tonight. I think the hearts of everyone that went on the trip are very full, and you could talk to any one of them and get a lot of different nuance from the trip. But I wanted to give you a brief frame of reference because in just a moment, Chauncey and Elizabeth and Ezra, as well as Megan Lanfer, are going to share their perspective briefly to you on this trip. And I wanted you to kind of have hooks to hang the things that they are talking about on so you kind of know what they're referencing when they get up here, because each of them are going to focus on a particular part of their experience on this trip. I do want to maximize their time and leave plenty of time for prayer as well. So I'm not going to tell a story as much as highlight impactful features of the trip with some photos and some explanation. So we'll start with, this is a picture of us right as soon as we arrived that very first evening. You can see the whole trip there. We were on the trip for a total of about 9.5 days is how long we were gone. And they looked about the same at the end as they did at the beginning. So they stayed perky all throughout and had a lot of energy all the way through until that red-eye flight on the way home. And I think that might have zapped them a little bit. But great group, 20 teens and 6 sponsors total. We switched out a couple of male sponsors halfway through, and we were thankful for Megan and then Alicia and Kate as well, who were there the whole time along with me. And then Heath Stevens came for the first half, Colin Grove came for the second half. Just a brief overview, and yes, that is a picture that someone on our team took. Now, I've kind of transparency-ized it a little bit here so you can read it, but we did go out one morning to watch the sunrise, and we'll see more pictures of that later. But the first half of the trip was an evangelism camp. That was what the folks at Beaumont Baptist Church in Edmonton, Alberta called this. And it was kind of a combination of receiving and giving. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit, but this was the first 5 days of the trip. We had enjoyed daily workshops and evening preaching services provided by members of the church and nearby churches as well. And then we also had the opportunity to run 2 simultaneous backyard Bible clubs, 3-day Bible clubs at homes of members of this church in the town of Beaumont. So that was the first 5 days of the trip. And then the second half was a mountain retreat. Usually on these mission trips, we try to combine it with visiting a camp, attending a camp nearby. Well, there are no Christian camps up here in this area, not anywhere close. In fact, the closest one that is regularly run is, I think, down in Wyoming or something like that. So we decided to kind of create our own. So for 4 days, we had this mountain retreat where we enjoyed God's creation. We also enjoyed fellowship just with us as a group, and we also participated in a pretty intensive Bible study, a group Bible study and discussion on the spiritual disciplines. I think Chauncey's going to talk a little bit more about that. But a wonderful time all together doing that evangelism camp and then the mountain retreat. The 2 backyard Bible clubs that we had the privilege of running, we split the group into 2. Heath and Kate led one of those groups, and then Alicia and myself kind of headed up the other one. At 2 homes of the members of the church there, and these are the 2 teams looking ready to go on the first day. You may see a couple of faces up there that you don't recognize, and that's because one of the great side benefits of these trips is the fellowship that we have with the church family there, including their young people. And there were a couple of young ladies and a young man as well who participated with the vast majority of the things that we did throughout the week, including our backyard Bible clubs, and so we were thankful for that. Typical backyard Bible club scene, right? It looks very similar out there to the way it does here. A lot of enjoyment, a lot of opportunities for sharing the gospel. We had a total of 36 children between the 2 clubs, half of which, give or take, were from the community. So they're likely unchurched or in churches that don't clearly present the gospel in a very secular, postmodern society up there in Alberta. And great time, and the teens were very active right from the start. They were essential to this process. They weren't just sitting there or providing crowd control. They taught some of the items in the lesson, taught the memory verse, the song, helped participate in the games and things like that. They did a great job being active in these Bible clubs. Here's a few more pictures of the teens participating. You see Kate there. She taught one of the club lessons for the week. And then John Pate, who was our host. Many of you remember John and Abby, who were here when John was in seminary. They served faithfully here for several years. He was our host, our contact. He is one of the pastors at the church there in Beaumont, and he was the teacher at the other club. We also had the privilege of serving through canvassing. This is another one of the ways where we had the opportunity to give. Okay, so we expended our energy to help enable their evangelistic efforts through the Backyard Bible Club and also through these canvassing opportunities. The picture on the left is us preparing a whole bunch of water bottles to hand out on Canada Day. On each of those water bottles there was some church information, and they would go and they would invite Canadians who are out celebrating kind of their version of the 4th of July. Very first day we were there, and so we spent time preparing those and then went out into town and distributed those. And then for the rest of the week, in the afternoons, we passed out a total of 10,000 church door hangers. And we're able to accomplish in 3 days what John anticipated would take them probably 6 months to do. And they already experienced some uptick in website visits and things like that as a result of this. So we were really thankful for the opportunity to be a part of that. Our teens walked, I don't know how many dozens of miles over those 3 days, just from door to door and house to house, participating in that, and they did a great job. And then we had the opportunity to do some receiving as well during this evangelism camp. And that took the form, in part, of this evangelism training that we were able to receive. So a total of 8 sessions, plus an extensive prayer time on one of the days. We enjoyed instruction on personal evangelism, how personal evangelism functions within a local church. The picture on the right, you see a man of Punjabi descent from India, and the Sikh culture and religion is very predominant in their area. So we were even able to hear about some cross-cultural evangelistic efforts and some personal testimonies as well. And then, of course, they gave us just a really awesome opportunity to fellowship, both with their church. We had several opportunities to interact with their church family, including on a Sunday there where we enjoyed worshiping with them, followed by a potluck dinner that we enjoyed with them, interacting with their young people, like I already mentioned, enjoying meals together as a group with some other members of the church family. A wonderful time of just some downtime and just a chance to fellowship woven throughout our entire time there. And this was another wonderful opportunity for us to be blessed by this really special church family. We had 5 different hosts that housed different groups of our overall group throughout those 5 days that we were there. And they were just so gracious and kind and giving. And this is a picture of just one of the groups with their hosts. And it's just a very special connection, one that may actually continue to bless us because at least one of these families is intending to come visit Greenville simply because of the impact of the group that they had in their home. They want to come and see them again. And they want to come visit Cornerstone, and they want to see what we're all about here, and we hope to enjoy that visit sometime in the next year or less. But a really special side benefit that you don't necessarily plan for that ends up being really central and a special experience for. I know our group were with my group was with the Pates. We got to stay in their home, and I remember one night we went out and got family dinner all together, right? And then on another night we just sat around and sang hymns together, and it was just a wonderful, special time with our hosts. We're grateful for each of them. And then we transitioned to the mountain retreat. This is a picture of Banff from the top of Sulphur Mountain, which is a gondola that we had the opportunity to ride up to. So these are not just your regular mountains. This is a beautiful place, and it's really hard to describe, and pictures don't do it justice either. But we transitioned on Monday, last third of the trip or so, down here and spent time just hiking, enjoying God's creation, studying God's Word together. It was a really special time. Here's just a few pictures. There's a picture of the sunrise. We got up very, very early. This is very far north, so to see a sunrise, you got to get up really early. And almost all of the group did. Went to this place where there's a beautiful lake, waited for the sun to rise, got some great photos, saw some elk really close by, made some special memories there. We kind of pretended that we were high society by walking around the Banff Springs Hotel for an hour or so, pretending like we belonged. That was a neat experience too. And then just the hikes we got to enjoy. Here's another picture of one of the hikes that we took to a lake, a group photo there. And of course, when you're traveling with teens, you have to be ready for anything to happen. And this happened. Several of them just decided that they were going to swim in this glacier-fed, freezing cold lake. And the more of them that jumped in, the more other ones wanted to do it too. And there ended up being this big group that ended up swimming and then having to hike all the way back, soaking wet. And at that point, they're teens, and you're trying to treat them like adults, and you just don't say anything. You just say, they'll learn, right? But no, it was a special memory for them to be able to do that as well. Beautiful place, obviously. You can see how gorgeous it is. The place on the left is actually where we stayed, and the reason I'm showing you this picture is primarily for the second photo that's there on the right. This is a picture of kind of our setup in one of these cabins where we would spend 3 hours at a time going through a guided study on the spiritual disciplines. And the teens were very involved in that discussion. They studied it at length before the trip. It was kind of their required reading and preparation to go on the trip. And we were edified amongst one another as a result of those extended times enjoying that discussion around Scripture together. So we want to thank you for your support. And before I come up and kind of conclude, I'm going to turn it over to Chauncey now. We'll have Chauncey and then Elizabeth Hand and then Ezra Steele and then Megan Lanfer, and then I'll come up after that. Chauncey, come on up.
Well, I just want to start with like a massive thank you for everybody in this room who actually made it possible for us to do this. Because whether that was through the Rent-A-Teens or through just like the verbal encouragement or through all of the prayers that happened for us while we were on this trip and leading up to it. And it was a lot, and I know it was a lot because I can't even tell you how many people came up to me the Sunday before we left and let me know that they were going to be praying for us. And you could definitely feel that throughout the trip, and we knew that was happening. And those prayers were actively being answered while we were in Edmonton, whether it was while we were running a backyard Bible club in a city where that's never been done before, and that's not an easy thing to do because there's like no awareness for that, prior awareness, or whether it's handing out 10,000 door hangers, invitations to the church, or whether it's going through the Atlanta airport where all the employees are angry for some reason. If you've been there, you know. But you could feel those prayers being answered throughout the week, and it was really cool to see God working through that. And we had a lot of awesome memories on the trip because we were all just a little sleep deprived and running on Tim Hortons coffee most of the time, but for me, it was really cool to see our youth group come together and really work together for a cause while we were there. And I was on a trip like a week before we left for Canada. And that whole trip, we talked about Romans 12, where it says to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. And the timing was just kind of perfect for me on that because in Edmonton, I was able to see that in our youth group happening in action in real time as I watched our youth group give up our natural self-serving human nature and put all of that aside and put aside our differences in order to serve him fully during our trip. But I think the thing for me that was the most encouraging out of the whole trip, and the thing that I'll take home with me and that's going to stick with me, was something that was brought up during our Bible study in Banff. It was actually something that was brought up by Ezra. Talk about iron sharpening iron. That guy can sharpen some iron. So being in Banff, it's impossible for me to describe to you like how massive and majestic the mountains are around us. Like living next to the Blue Ridge Mountains, like it doesn't even compare. Like imagine like 10 times that. So being in that environment, we talked about a little bit in the Bible study how it's incredible that a God with that much power, with that much of a powerful, majestic creation would choose a creature so small and insignificant like me to bear his image and to have the opportunity and the responsibility to bring him glory and honor every day. And just being in that environment and having that articulated to me just sort of opened my eyes to the immense responsibility that I have. And not only that, but the joy that I get to have to serve him and bring glory to him every day. So that's something that you guys were able to make happen for me and for our youth group. And it was super encouraging to know that you guys were praying for us through all of that. And we got to help out the church there and work in the community and help God have an avenue to spread the gospel in the community. And we were also all able to grow in our spiritual lives and in our walks with God. And I got something special like that I get to carry home and that will stick with me now. So I just thank you guys for that. I'll hand it over to Ezra.
Hi. I know Chauncey and Pastor Chris already said this, but we really do want to thank all of you for your support and prayers for the trip. They were such an encouragement, not only to our team, but also to the other people that we went to serve. Going into this trip, after going with the youth group to Utah a few years ago, I was really nervous that this trip wouldn't measure up in some way to my last experiences. And I wasn't sure if our ministry in Canada would be as important or impactful for me, or how all the dynamics in this group of people would work together. It was really cool, though, how God was able to bring us all together, and how I got to know so many more people in our youth group on a deeper level. One of the main things God taught me on this trip is that evangelism is a natural outpouring of our love for Christ, and how that overcomes so many obstacles. One of the speakers said, "Let the subject you love to talk about be Jesus." When you're loving Christ, you want to talk about him and share his word with people. Before the trip, I always viewed evangelism as really complicated and hard, something that only really experienced Christians could do. I was able to learn, though, that a lot of that fear comes from misplaced priorities and wrong motivations. When you're not sharing the gospel for yourself or in your power, normal incapabilities and challenges fade away because it is Christ's word, Christ's strength upholding me, and Christ's love, not my own. Our job is not to convert the people, and there's nothing that you can do to change their minds. In the end, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting God, and only God can change them. Knowing that it's not all up to you actually is really relieving and gives you a lot more confidence because you can trust God to be in control instead of yourself. Walking miles through neighborhoods to hang information about the church on doors or hand out to people is definitely scary, especially when you're doing it for yourself, because naturally we would never choose to do something so vulnerable with so many chances for rejection. Sometimes we would walk up to doors to see no soliciting signs, or even dogs would chase us. Ask Leona if you want to know more about that. But other times, the people you would least expect to talk to you were the ones that were most receptive. Somehow, in all those hot miles we walked, though, the only person offered to drink chai on someone's porch was Pastor Chris, and we were all a little bitter about that. However, when you're not focused on yourself, but instead on loving these people the way Jesus would, you can be motivated to do things that would normally seem too hard on your own. Some of the best memories came from things that happened while we were serving, both with our team and some of the teams from Beaumont Baptist Church, but also conversations that I had with my amazing hosts the first week, from the daily visits our group took to Tim Hortons, sometimes even multiple times a day, the 4 a.m. hike to the lake to watch the sunrise in Banff, the gondola ride up the mountain on the last day and seeing such a cool view from so far up, and even the long car rides every day in our 15-passenger van that we called the Battle Bus. I would highly recommend going to Banff someday if you get the chance, because it's just as beautiful as everyone tells you. It was so cool seeing God's beauty on display in the mountains there, and also in the joyful way the church there was able to worship God. Thank you again for making this trip possible and for caring enough to invest in our spiritual lives in a way we will always remember.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mr. Steele, and I went on the Canada trip. And I would like to echo what people before me said, that all of you guys' prayers and encouragements were definitely felt throughout the whole trip, and we couldn't have done it without you, and I really extol you guys for your great encouragement of us. But up until leading up to the trip, we were working on a Bible study, and when I heard that we were going to be doing a backyard Bible camp in Canada, part of me was a little bit nervous and kind of confused about why we were doing it in Canada, because we have multiple backyard Bible clubs in Greenville, but I was sure the Lord was going to use that in any way he saw fit. But something I really took away from the trip was that serving God is not about doing what you can do And God, it's not about God using you necessarily. It's God shows you where there's a need, and he sends you there to fill it, whether you feel like you can do it or not. God enables you to do anything he needs you to do. And serving in those 5 days in Beaumont were some of the best days of my life, and they were an extremely encouraging time and strengthening for my personal walk with God, as all of us from Greenville were able to go to a different country with different culture, different people we've never met before, all as a group, come together and just unspokenly decide that this week we are going to make God our number one priority. And we had plenty of freedoms on this trip, especially with being in Banff as opposed to a more structured camp that we haven't had in past mission trips. But everybody on our trip was entirely devoted to serving God, and we would have had opportunities. We could have abused those freedoms, but nobody ever did. And I'm very thankful for the group of people that Cornerstone has in my age group, and my friends, people in my cabin in our host home. It was really great getting to know you guys and serving God together. But it was just truly encouraging to see the joy of the Lord throughout that whole week and in Banff, serving God and learning together and edifying each other. It was really encouraging to see what my fellow youth group members had to say. And up until the trip, I had been kind of struggling personally with an issue of serving God and doing what God wanted me to do, or serving myself and doing the things that I enjoyed. But God was able to show me through this trip and through Pastor's recent messages as well, as encouraged that God can work in my life and change the desires of my heart to be what he has them to be. And then serving God is just such a joy and such a privilege. Like Chauncey was talking about earlier, that God could have chosen the mountains to bear his image or anything else but us insignificant humans, but he didn't. And it's such a responsibility and such a amazing way that God has chosen to use us in his grand plan to serve him. I'd just like to thank all of you again for your encouragement and your support. You were truly felt in Canada, and I know we were able to have an impact through your prayers and your encouragement. Thank you.
I also want to thank you all for the opportunity to go on this trip. They're always so much fun, and just a really sweet time of growth for everyone, myself included. The role that I played was a little bit behind the scenes through the first part of the trip. I was doing food duty, but that allowed me to really step back and observe what the teens were doing in the camp. The van that I drove I had the battle bus, so I had a house of guys and a house of girls that we were transporting around every day, and I would hear them talk about canvassing after they'd done it. And there was a theme that I saw from the Pates, I saw it from our host homes, and I saw it from the teens just throughout the whole week. And the funny thing is, it grew, and this theme I saw was one of mutual submission one to another. It was actually one of the disciplines in the Bible study. And we didn't discuss it at great length in Banff. We kind of had to pick and choose. But, and I bring this up because mutual submission is not natural for anyone, I think, of us, certainly not myself. But again, to see the teens, and they've hinted at this, to see the teens defer to one another in that van of 9 or 10 quite individual personalities who had to ride for 4 hours, 6 hours, and learn to get along and learn to decide who was going to talk and what the topic was and what game we were going to play and how loud we were going to play it. There was just a lot of grace that they gave each other. And the study that they went through, it encouraged them to think about what Christ said in John 6. I've come to this earth from heaven not to do my will, but the will of him who sent me, right? To do someone else's will, giving up your own position, was something that the teens did all week, whether it was in the van or whether it was pivoting on a plan, right? We were going to eat here, and now we're going to eat there. We were going to walk 4 miles, and now we're going to walk truly 6, 7 miles, right, in one afternoon. I never heard them complain, not a single word. And even the food, how simple it was, or what time we ate, even not knowing what the plan was, like it's a 10-day trip and you have 24, 25 people you're moving around Canada. And more than once I was driving and a voice would come from the back of the van and they would say, Miss Megan, where are we going? And what are we about to do? And I'm like, oh, okay. And just the sweet spirit that they had of just being up for whatever their leadership thought was right for them to do next. It was just so sweet. And it got stronger as the 10 days went on, which is just not natural with fatigue and being used to one another or getting tired of one another, whatever. And I say that because you guys several people text me throughout the trip at various times saying they were praying. The teens knew that you were praying before we left. And I mean, those prayers were like monumental in fueling that attitude of submission toward one another. It doesn't happen without the Spirit's work. So thank you guys for praying. It's a very practical example of how God enabled us. But I mean, if you can't get along in a van for 4 hours on a 10-day trip, you're in trouble. You're not going to be able to accomplish the Lord's will. So just these very simple things that the teens chose to do willingly, it was such a blessing. Abby Pate was equally a blessing. The church didn't have a building. So on more than one occasion, 30 people were eating a meal in her kitchen. And, you know, she's got little ones. I mean, I took up half her fridge with the food we had. We had a cooler in the front hallway. Just quite a sweet spirit of submitting to what needed to happen for those 5 days just to keep the group going behind the scenes. And when people are willing to be humble like that in the little things, you just know that God's going to do really sweet things, you know, in the Backyard Bible Clubs. So thank you for your prayers, and thank you for the opportunity to go. Those of you who had teens, thank you for trusting me. Hopefully now that you're all got your teens back, you still trust me with your children. But it really was just a precious time. And the people in the church, equally submissive. Our hosts were the ones in the picture, Elizabeth and I. And Jeff and Nancy gave us their home. They gave us their food. They gave us their conversation, stayed up late for us, just quite an evidence of God's grace and the unity that we could all have together. So thank you for the opportunity.
Megan mentioned something there at the end that I think is really central to this kind of opportunity that any of us throughout our lifetime hopefully will have the chance to have. This kind of opportunity where you go somewhere and you minister elsewhere and you glean the benefits from that, benefits that roll back home with you and impact your ministry here. And Megan referenced this very briefly, but just the reality that because we are followers of Jesus and we have the Holy Spirit indwelling in us, we can go somewhere where we know no one and spend 5 days, and at the end of those 5 days, feel so knit to those people. And there's nothing else that we have in common with them at all other than the reality that we serve Jesus together. And He is our Savior, and He is our King, and His Spirit lives within us. And that is something that is impactful on a trip like this, and it's also something that is impactful in our growing relationships here with the people we see all the time as well. So thank you for investing in all of those ways in us and in our teens, and we are very, very grateful. I want to take just a couple of minutes before we go to prayer time to mention a couple of church-wide prayer request updates. And then we're just going to go straight to our individual small prayer groups after that. Won't share any of the requests to the entire group, but I would encourage you to take the time to share burdens that you have, updates that you have with whatever group you are praying with. Just for sake of time, we want to make sure we get to prayer and have enough